Hi, and welcome to track 4 of the Connected Future, Privacy This Way Forward. Thanks for joining us, and we're excited that you're here. What does people-based future mean in the context of data privacy? What are we thinking about? And how do we define what it means to be privacy first? Particularly this year when data ethics is a salient point for our organizations and for CMOs, as well as consumers, what does it mean to be open to all? What's our role and what's our responsibilities? In this panel, we'll have some transparent insights with top players in our industry to understand what our perspectives are on a going forward basis, how these perspectives are driven by and contemplate data privacy, and some practical considerations during this tumultuous times. We hope you'll get these takeaways. First, regardless of the outcome of third-party cookies and updates to privacy laws, there will be some technical developments that will result in companies approaching the path forward with a portfolio approach to data evaluation and data purchasing. And second, a portfolio approach also aligns data collection purposes with appropriate needs, prioritizing a consumer first. I'm excited to be on the stage with Sherry and Rich, who are two companies with vast global footprints. So I think we'll have fairly robust discussion today. With that, I'd like the panelists joining me on the virtual stage to introduce themselves. Sherry?
Hi, Amy. Thanks for having me on the panel. I'm Sherry Backstein. I head IBM Watson Advertising and the Weather Company, and really happy to be here. Rich?
Yeah, hi. Nice to meet you guys, and I'm happy to be here as well. I'm VP of Product for Identity at Oracle Data Cloud. I've been in ad tech for about 15 years and have been in the mobile advertising space and the behavioral targeting space. And I come from a background in medicine and medical robotics and bring sort of that privacy focus to this field. So it's exciting to go through this transition with the industry.
And my name is Amy Young, General Counsel and Chief Privacy Officer of Lotame. So you know why they roped me in. I've been in and with audience measurement as well as publishers for the last decade, and am excited to be with Lotame and to kick this off. So why don't we get going? One of the hardy topics that continues to drive much industry discussion, particularly as it relates to the connected future, is how we continue to align industry practices with consumer trust and maintaining reach in targeting and building on-point user journeys. Where is that intersection and how do we get there? I'd like to start the conversation there because understanding the trend of where things are going can help us pivot and understand how to get there. Sherry, IBM is a global company and particularly relevant for today's panel, a global publisher. Can you provide your views on how IBM is approaching their data needs going forward?
Well, Amy, as you said, I'm in a unique position because I lead both an advertising company and a publishing company. So we're really approaching our needs in two ways. First, creating high quality content across all channels that consumers deem to be very high value exchange. So they're willing to share their first party data with us. That has to be rooted in privacy by design. Users should have the power of deciding who they share their data with. So the trust between the publisher and the consumer is really just imperative. Now on the advertising side of the business, marketers, well, they need to be able to attribute that ROI across all digital channels. And that's where we believe that AI can solve some of those problems, especially in a future that's void of cookies and identifiers. In fact, we're seeing AI, emerging as the next category of advertising, kind of akin to what we saw with programmatic years ago in the industry. So we actually started many, many months ago building solutions that were rooted in AI for marketers and actually developing a suite of these solutions that can be actually used across the entire ecosystem.
That makes a lot of sense. And two, with Lotame, we're hitting those same exact points. I think all of the points that you raise are important to our industry as well as in brand trust, and in particular, the AI approach of first identifying that authenticated data and then adding some AI components on it is certainly the trend that we too are developing in. Now, Rich, I know Oracle also has a publisher perspective too. Could you share your insights?
Yeah, many of us actually come from publisher backgrounds as well, and we really are empathetic that publishers are going through this inflection point with the rest of the industry. We're really a team here. both sides are critical to having effective advertising. So if the publishers don't win, the advertisers don't win, and vice versa. We have several products that are mature right now that focus on publishers, some of which are in our customer intelligence platform and our CX marketing cloud. This is for big enterprises who may have a publishing arm that want to integrate publishing their data with their publishing solutions. We also have contextual insights products and our moat-based brand safety tools for publishers to get transparency in where their content performs and what their content really attracts in terms of interests. And we also have our Add This tools that help publishers achieve earned media from social media. They're being asked to make a transition right now to consented relationships, and it's pretty difficult. So I think that we'll see success there. We'll see gradual success in that transition. But at the same time, I do believe the same thing that Sherry believes, that both consent is important, but also that backfill of scale with machine learning techniques and other things that'll help replace some of the pseudonymous identifiers that publishers were using in the past.
Tell me a little bit more about that. You mentioned the consented approach. And so that, it would be helpful, I think, for our audience to learn a little bit more about your perspective.
Yeah, so consent is really different in different domains. A lot of people think about consent on the web as the little choices icons that come up in web pages, but we also have a large relationship with offline data providers as well. And so our level of consent needs to be evaluated both online, offline with CPG-based offline data providers. And so consent really is a legal agreement and a transparency relationship with the consumer that we look for in all of those dimensions. I think it's really important to say Oracle's agnostic in media. We're not a DSP, and we don't own inventory. So all we really care about is that the solutions, work. So we look across channels and identity solutions and data solutions, and we're trying to basically be the best judge that we can. So our identity graph and all of our data solutions incorporate that.
It's a really great point, and I would also say, in light of the consented approach point, it would only be fair, I think, if we also recognize some other counterpoints that exist in the ecosystem as well, which include a contextual approach.
Absolutely, yeah. So context is very exciting for us. As you know, Oracle acquired Grapeshot in 2018. Grapeshot is the leading contextual intelligence provider, and they scan millions of web pages and new emerging content daily. And we've been finding that technique is actually a very good supplement to identified data. So as you see the data sources that are identified decrease, you're seeing context being able to be trained on that data, and machine learning, as Sherry was talking about, can help bridge those two sides. So we're really excited to see the expansion of contextual as sort of an augmentation to an advertiser's plan. Our job is to, again, achieve return on ad spend for advertisers. And so both identified and de-identified solutions are applied there. And publishers, I think, benefit as well, because we want to be as transparent with the results that we're providing to advertisers with the publishers, so we can all feed together.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. I mean, from a Lotame perspective, Sherry and Rich, we echo a lot of the good points that you identify, because we realize that there is going to be at some level a reduction in authenticated data. And at the same time, that's where the data collection needs to start. So privacy by design too is a really important experience that I've had in my own personal career, but also the way in which Lotame is approaching the way in which it initially takes a look at the data, and then, like Sherry, and as you mentioned, Rich, using AI to then be able to expand that in a contextual way so that there can be targeting that's in part aligned with the overall interests. And so, I think from my perspective and from Lotame's perspective, general pursuit of data alone isn't really going to win the game, and it certainly doesn't then enhance the trust with the ultimate consumer, even if we, for example, don't have a stake in the game, as Richie just said. But that in order to achieve data quality, which then builds that relationship between our company and other companies, such as yours, as well as in enhancing the overall relationship with the consumer, from our perspective, that's the appropriate approach, so that when somebody is, a company's collecting data, if you're collecting a social security number, for example, that's not what's necessary to then target them in a particular ad. We can get an appropriate, limited context and still be able to achieve that goal. So there's proportionality that exists there.
Yeah, I think, it's a really strong point. I think what's exciting, Amy and Rich, is, I think there's just a real opportunity for tech companies and publishers to really work together to increase privacy collectively, as we've both been talking about. At IBM, we're taking a lead to create this ecosystem of like-minded partners like yourselves to increase the adoption of AI and to really scale AI, within the advertising community. I think this leading edge technology certainly can, make insights better. It can make decision making faster, and can really benefit as another option outside of other data or consent mechanisms.
Yeah, agreed. It's taken a little while for the industry to sort of start converging on where the future is going. But I think now that everyone realizes that we're all going to have to step up and be a bit smarter about both the usage of data, so data minimization, privacy, respecting privacy, and intelligent ways to bridge the identified and de-identified worlds, and just be smarter about the marketing that you're doing, rather than taking a small seed of users and scaling it up to a bunch of device identifiers, right? I think that will ultimately benefit every single party, and the consumer will have a more transparent view. Contrast this with the world that we've lived in for the past decade plus, and it's been hard mechanics, cookie syncing, and all of these other things that just make the final value that we're trying to provide just that much more difficult. So I'm very excited, Sherry. I think I share your opinion that we can actually devote our engineering resources now to the actual solution here and driving ROI.
Yeah, absolutely. It's going to take a little while for that adoption, right? And there's a lot of education, especially, with AI, because so many companies, while we like to talk about it, are not actually using it to its full potential. So, so we should think of these as very exciting times. Agreed.
Well, we've got a few minutes left, so I'll ask if you've got last thoughts, Sherry and Rich, on a number of the things that we've identified, including on this last point, a need for a portfolio approach and how that ends up aligning with the consumer.
Yeah, so from my perspective, I think that the advertising industry really needs this new backbone. And AI certainly, I think, is the right backbone for that, because it can be, leading edge technology that's open, and that's privacy first. And so I think there's just a lot of opportunity, across the entire ecosystem, some from tech providers to publishers to marketers, to really leverage now this new technology to drive their businesses.
Yeah, I agree. I think there's a number of new methodologies that we're going to see emerge in the industry, and AI is going to play a critical role. I think also ways to understand the usage patterns of data and to make the most of the smallest data sources. Scarcity drives innovation, and I'm very excited about seeing how that matures. And AI is the main technique that we can use to take that small input data set and create enormous scale and effectiveness out of it. We're not waiting for some magic bullet. I think for a while, I think the industry was sitting there waiting, saying, who will announce what? Who will announce what? And I think right now it's starting to pivot into this innovation phase where we're really bootstrapping ourselves into that next level. And it's very exciting.
You both had really great points. So I think the one that I'll pick to end with anyway is that with the consumer brand alignment and with the continued opportunity, I think, for companies to be and provide a transparent trust relationship with their consumers, we will see more and more data minimization, such that the data that goes in to then be able to build that targeted approach is actually aligned with the type of advertising that's being provided, rather than sort of today, which is a grab all. And to both of your points, the AI as well as the technical developments that are out there will absolutely help be able to achieve that conclusion. Well, I'll say this, we've covered a lot of ground in a very, very short 20 minutes. And I hope you all were able to take away a number of insights on addressability, including how each of our organizations thinks what it means to be privacy first in the ongoing changes in data privacy and technology. I hope you found this valuable. I want to thank you so much to my fellow panelists, Sherry and Rich, for making the time to provide these insights. And thank you all for attending our panel.